The nods are in! Now that the nominations have been handed out by the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences, it's time for us to dice it up with our Oscar nomination special. Will they vote to the days of yore, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or even further back to 1917, or a more modern virus infecting them like Parasite? Let's discuss and decide for ourselves, for this is the Extra Butter Oscar nomination special. Hey, welcome back to Extra Butter and our half-hour special dedicated to all things Oscar nominations. Because where would we be without the Oscar nominations? And off the bat, I'd like to thank all the supporting people, specifically the supporting actors and actresses. Let's go down the list. Tom Hanks, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, got that nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Congratulations. Anthony Hopkins, definitely the crankier of the two popes, got a nomination. And Brad Pitt, of course, nominated for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. My prediction off the bat, since he won the Critics' Choice Awards, I'm guessing he's also going to go on to win the Academy Award for that.
Hey, you're Rick Dalton. Don't you forget it.
Al Pacino, very expected nomination for The Irishman. Joe Pesci, in probably one of the most understated performances of his career, also for The Irishman.
What's the best thing about reteaming with the group that made this possible?
Well, it was the hope that we could do it. You know, Al playing Hoffa, Joe playing Buffalino, and Marty directing it. Me playing Frank. It was, It was a long haul, but finally we got it done, and I'm very happy that it's been received as well as it has. And any scene I did with Al was great. You know, we had fun doing, and Joe, of course. There were two different types of things. The Joe character was what he was, and Jimmy was the opposite. And Pesci being sort of known for the kind of flamboyant, more crazy stuff that his other characters had done. This one, he was just flat down the way he should be.
Yeah, I love your scenes with him. And this new dynamic, it's pretty amazing.
He's got to be very excited. Irishman also nominated for Best Picture, and he's up for producer on that. Now on to the supporting actresses. So Richard Jewell, largely ignored by both the Critics' Choice Awards, the Golden Globes before that, and Oscar nominations. However, Kathy Bates, congratulations. You made it in there. You got a nomination. And Margot Robbie, also an understated performance, but well-deserved supporting actress nomination for Bombshell. Laura Dern nominated for her beautiful performance, also understated in Marriage Story. We went on the set to talk to her about it. Take a look.
I think that Noah Baumbach's film really explores the question of, if we had to do it over again, what would we have done differently? I think he's really made a true love story, using divorce as the narrative.
And then love. Can you explain how powerful love is in the film?
It's one of the most oddly romantic and moving films about love. Love of a couple and love of a child.
And then with such a phenomenal cast, what it was like working with her was something that's so real in a lot of people's lives.
It was incredible. I mean, Noah is such an amazing director and writer that he set the tone for and the room for us to explore emotionally and be really like a tribe of actors working on a play. Like, we really rehearsed it and we really spent time. Noah is such a genius, and it's it's easy to work with him. You know, it's a great pleasure.
So many great performances in Little Women. One of the least expected, least likely to win a nomination was Florence Pugh for her performance, but she got it, and we talked.
Scene not to miss, Beth Eliza playing the piano in the Lawrence house, and Mr.
Lovely.
Lawrence sitting on the stairs and listening and crying behind a closed door is like one of the most heartbreaking things. And just you in that scene and just your posture and everything about you walking in the house, I was already on the brink of crying. And then when I saw his face, I was like, okay, now that he's crying, I can cry.
I was welling up as she took me to the moment. As remarkable as Scarlett Johansson was in A Marriage Story, she was equally, if not even more remarkable in her supporting role in Jojo Rabbit. And we talked to her about that.
What was your two initial impressions of Scarlett when you first met her?
It's really nice, really funny.
Yeah, no.
You were like goofing around with the crew a lot, and like with like Tiger and I don't know, in Video Village, just hanging out and
Yeah, we had
having a good time.
We had a pretty casual set. I mean, even
Yeah.
though we obviously there was a heaviness of some of the drama in this film, but Taika's really playful, and so I think the director kind of sets the tone, and then you see kind of how you can be on set. Yeah, and what'd you say?
You kind of have to stick with that. You kind of have to keep up with the level of Taika.
Yeah, that's true. Taika's like the goofiest of all of us.
If anyone said to me, it might be too soon to make a film about World War II that has comedic actors in it, I would say it is the appropriate time, because I think that the best way of delivering a message is to use comedy to relax an audience and draw them in.
Nice job, Kelly, in that interview. Also, very nice job in that performance. Scarlett Johansson, well-deserved nomination. All right, coming up in a moment, it's the moment you've been waiting for. We'll talk about the Best Picture nominees, why Ford versus Ferrari probably is going to lose the race, and why everybody's infected with Parasite. That and more next. Hey, welcome back to Extra Butter in Hollywood. Just hanging out in a park where the stars bring their dogs. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Pitt's dog. How do you feel about Brad Pitt winning the Critics' Choice Award for Best Actor? And do you think your boss is going to go on to win Best Picture? All right, it's not Brad Pitt's dog. The dog's just saying you're lying. This is not Brad Pitt's dog. This is Finley, by the way, and Finley just wants to go play with her buddy. So here, Finley, back to your rightful owner. All right, if Finley could talk, Finley would say, shut up and talk about Best Picture. All right, I'm on it already. You know what's going to race into this but not cross the finish line? Ford versus Ferrari. Sorry, I tried to be clever. That's about as good as I can get. I think the nomination is the win. I love this movie, but I don't think it's going to go on to win the Academy Award. But still, a beautiful movie to watch on a big screen. Along the same lines, as much as I wanted you to see The Irishman on the big screen rather than its home on Netflix, I don't think it's going to win the Academy Award. For Jojo Rabbit, the nomination is the win. Joker, a lovely movie, but based on its performance so far at the award season, I don't think it's going to make it. But what I do love about Joker is the fact that the guy who brought you The Hangover is now nominated for an Academy Award. Yeah, he did that and the Joker. All right, it's no secret I like Greta Gerwig. I like her as a human being, I like her as an artist, and yeah, I consider her a friend, though she won't claim me. Regardless, we sat down where the actual book Little Women was written to talk about this movie.
How did this all happen? While you were shooting Lady Bird in Sacramento, California, on the wrap, did you guys go, you know what we should do? Let's get together.
No, actually, I had written Little Women before I shot Lady Bird. So I had written Little Women. I wanted to direct it, but I hadn't directed anything yet. And then I directed Lady Bird. Then it came out, and then they came back and said, "Do you want to direct Little Women?" And I was just incredibly eager to. And I started plotting this as I was releasing Lady Bird. I was like, I've got another shot. I think as a filmmaker, you're always like, oh my God, they're gonna let me do it again. Go, go, go! Like, you just can't believe it. It's so exciting, and it was a big risk to make this movie, and people don't make movies like this anymore. And I'm eternally grateful to Sony, and I'm eternally grateful to Amy Pascal, who's my producer, and then these beautiful actors who came to play.
It is great work. Whether it wins the award or not, I don't know. She did get Best Adapted Screenplay at the Critics' Choice Awards. In fact, take a look at this. The moment she won, she jumped up and ran over to her husband's table to say, "Look, honey, I won." And then I shouted out, "You did it! You did it!" She says, "I know. Let me go take more pictures." So her husband, Noah Baumbach, if you haven't seen Marriage Story, you need to see it. It is absolutely exquisite. We sat down with him behind the scenes to talk about it.
On one hand, the movie is the story of divorce, but it's also a love story. I mean, that's what I set out to do, was I wanted to try to find a new way to tell a love story.
And then to intertwine those two, was that easier or harder to do?
It actually became easier for me because I think it's almost when something's not working, you sort of notice it in ways that you wouldn't notice it otherwise. Like if a door is locked, you actually look at the door, whereas if it's open, you just walk through. So I felt that in a way you kind of could look at a marriage in a kind of clearer-eyed way in its undoing, in people coming apart.
Gotta warn you, if it's not obvious, Marriage Story a little depressing. You're gonna have to see like 100 Disney or Pixar movies after it just to get out of your funk. Also, not exactly a happy movie, 1917. Though remarkable, not only my favorite film of the year, probably one of my favorite films of the last decade. Why? Well, the story is pure, it's simple, and the technology behind the making of it is absolutely groundbreaking. You've got to see this movie on a big screen. The stars of the movie until you get to the third act, largely unknown until you get to this guy, Dean Charles Chapman. Yep, the guy from Game of Thrones. We talked at the Critics' Choice Awards about it. You know, your performance is so amazing, and I don't want to ruin it for people who haven't seen it, but your character goes through so much. I'm almost sad when I see you because I think, oh, the guy.
Dean. Yeah, it's actually amazing to see people's reactions after they've watched it, because they're still recovering weeks after. Right. And it's a film that you don't watch, you genuinely experience it, and you are on the edge of your seat when you watch it. So people genuinely are still a bit shook up after watching it.
Oh, remarkable movie, and his performance, like, I just wanted to hug him when he came up and said, "You're a lot." Oh wait, did I plot spoil? Sorry, park people. Go see 1917. I'll try not to ruin it for you. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, this is the nominee I think is going to go on to win just based on its performance so far. I could be wrong. If there's an upset, what's it going to be? This movie, Parasite. Now, you might be the kind of person who says, I don't go see subtitled movies. Go see this movie. You'll quickly forget that you're reading the subtitles. And as much as you think you don't have in common with someone living in South Korea, you're going to find out, indeed you do. And that's why this movie is much more scary. There, not going to say anything else because I don't want to plot spoil a movie you need to go see on the big screen. All right, speaking of seeing on the big screen, you need to go see The Ladies. Where would the movie be without the most powerful women in Hollywood leading it? Who's going to win this year? We'll talk about that with the nominees next. Hey, welcome back to Extra Butter from Hollywood and our half-hour special dedicated to all of the Oscar nominees. Where would the movies be without the awesome leading ladies, the powerful performances that make the movies work? Let's go down the list of nominees. Have you seen the movie Harriet? You should. Why? In it, you'll see a remarkable performance nominated worthy for Cynthia Erivo. Scarlett Johansson got her second nomination for Marriage Story. Keep in mind, she's also nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Saoirse Ronan nominated for Little Women. Was she robbed for Lady Bird? Maybe. This could be her comeback. We caught up where she shot the movie to talk about it.
I understand that some discussions of all of this may have started on the set in Sacramento, California of Lady Bird, that Greta may have been opening the discussion about you being in this.
Not on the set. The film had been made and we were doing press for Lady Bird, and we were at, an award show, as you are. And I just heard that she was doing it, and she hadn't said anything to me yet about it. And I just tapped her on the shoulder, and she turned around, and I was like, I know you're doing Little Women, and I think I should be Joe, and you can go away and think about it. Don't talk to me about it now, and we'll, you should let me be Joe. And so that's sort of how it happened. And actually, when Greta went to the studio to pitch the movie, she hadn't made Lady Bird at that stage, so nobody knew. She wasn't like Greta Gerwig yet. And she went to this massive studio, had done indie movies, all that sort of stuff, hadn't directed on her own, and she was like, I need to make this film. So it was really interesting, and Joe obviously did exactly the same thing in the movie. It was really interesting how that came out in us.
So many amazing ladies in Bombshell, but Charlize Theron got the nomination. Renee Zellweger brought Judy Garland to life. We talked about it. Take a look.
Every one of us was there every day to celebrate her. This beautiful woman who deserved the world's love. She mattered so much to so many people, and she touched the lives of so many people. We want to show her the love that she shared with all of us. And boy, what a special experience that was. And the dreams that you dared to dream really do come true.
A couple weeks ago, if you said, is Renee Zellweger going to win? I would have said, no, Judy, the movie's just not that strong despite her amazing performance. After the Critics' Choice Awards, I'm thinking, she's probably going to win the Oscar. Now on to the Best Actors. For Pain and Glory, Antonio Banderas snuck in there with a deserved nomination. Leo DiCaprio, no surprise there for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Adam Driver will absolutely break your heart in Marriage Story. Jonathan Pryce, between you and me, the nicer of the two popes. And last but not least, Joaquin Phoenix, who I think is going to go on to win the Oscar. We talked to him behind the scenes.
You never know if what he's saying is real. But the thing is, I didn't think about it saying this may not be real. I'd say whatever he's saying, it's very real to him. Now, whether it is objectively real, that's questionable. But for him, it always felt real. So I felt like I had to approach it sincerely every time, whatever the scene was. But it's really left up to you, to the audience, to decide what you think is real or isn't.
And a true story of the power of Joaquin Phoenix. 2,000 attendees of the Critics' Choice Awards. 2 weeks before, Joaquin Phoenix people called and said, Joaquin's not going to show up unless you go absolutely plant-based for everything you serve under the roof. So what did we do as an organization? The Critics' Choice Award pretty much offered up celery for the entire night. True story. But then he got on stage and thanked us for helping to solve the world's carbon dioxide problem. So there's that. All right, will he win? I think so. Another speech on the way from Joaquin Phoenix. In the meantime, at least 2 people, specifically a husband and wife, should be furious about the Academy Award nominations for Best Director. We'll talk about that and recap the nominees as this Extra Butter Oscar nominee special continues. Hey, welcome back to Extra Butter and our Oscar nomination wrap-up. We are at Cantor's Deli. Where is that? Well, this is where everybody, after the after party and the after party ends, they end up at Cantor's to celebrate those big Oscar wins, including the directors, like this year's nominees. No stranger to Cantor's, Martin Scorsese loves this place, nominated for The Irishman. I bet you never thought you'd see the day the guy from The Hangover would be nominated, but he is. Todd Phillips for The Joker, Sam Mendes for 1917, Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. All right, look, if it were between you and me, I would love 1917 to win. I think it's one of the most remarkable movies ever made. Technologically, way ahead of the rest. I don't know if it's going to win or not, but I still sat down with Sam Mendes to talk about it. Take a look.
It's a very complicated process, but at the same time, you know, a lot of it was done before we started shooting. You know, we had to measure every step of the journey, so we couldn't dig trenches until we knew how long the journey through the trenches was. So we started off on empty fields, holding a script, marking out the journeys and where the scenes happened with posts, and then we dug the trenches. And then obviously you've got to do the same thing with No Man's Land and the German trenches, and quarries and orchards and farmhouses and towns at night. None of that was constructed until we knew exactly the journey they had to take.
That guy, Sam Mendes, I want to give him a big hug every time I see him, as well as Steven Spielberg. 1917, a brilliant movie. You got to see it on the big screen. You know, if the Critics' Choice Awards are a barometer by which you judge the Oscars, then Quentin Tarantino's probably not going to win the Oscar, despite the fact I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's going to win. Regardless, he was pretty optimistic when we went behind the scenes to talk to him.
This is our lives. So as important as it is that we try to do movies that we care about and we put all our hope into, and hopefully we have good results at the end, as important is the experience of making the movie, because this is our lives. So if we're going to dedicate months and in some cases years to something, then we owe it to ourselves to enjoy it. We owe ourselves to appreciate it, to really have a great time. Everybody on the set, this is their life, so let's live it.
And I see this as a confluence of all your work to date, in many ways. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could talk about that.
Well, there is a thing where, you know, I have a first AD named Bill Clark that has been with me since Jackie Brown. He came to the house to read the script, and I was really kind of curious what he was going to think about it, and he went out by my pool like these guys did and read it, and he came back in and he goes, "It's all of them." He goes like, these are all, there's a bit of all your movies rolled into one, to one degree or another in this script. And I do kind of think there's a little bit of I look at this as my 9th movie, but then I think you can also look at it to some degree as like, okay, you can also look at it when it comes to a director's career where their films are focused, they didn't do a job, then maybe all the movies are one movie. They're all connected like boxcars on a train. And if that's the case, I think this is the climax. This seems like the climax of all those movies together. I'll do another movie, but that might be more epilogue-y, right? This seems like the big show-stopping climax.
Yeah. Nice, really nice.
All right, Quentin, I wish you the best of luck. J.J. Abrams, I would love you to win Best Director because I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. Yeah, I know you're not nominated for it, but Star Wars could have its first win in 40 years, 3 big nominations at the Oscars. Are you a big Star Wars fan? I'm like a bad waiter trying to talk to you on television when you take a big bite, huh? All right, you enjoy your pastrami. I wish I could be so lucky. What's that?
My son is.
Oh, loves it?
Totally loves it.
All right, well, he might be in luck. It's going to win an Oscar this year.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I talked to J.J. Abrams about getting over the hurdles. Take a look. Tell me the moment on set, if you can identify a moment or a day where you honored the 8-year-old J.J. Abrams that could not be a bigger fan of this movie.
I was 10 when Star Wars came out, so when I was 8, I wouldn't have even known of Star Wars.
Okay, all
So in
right.
fairness, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm 8.
I
I'm
thought
8
you were
over
younger.
here.
Sorry.
But when I was 10, I will be honest with you, I don't really remember many days on this movie that didn't. And I say that because when you are making a Star Wars movie, every day there's an unbelievable reminder that you're doing the impossible, that you're working on something that you never in your life dreamed you would actually get to be part of. Whether it's a costume design, whether it is a droid that suddenly is alive and being operated, whether it's a puppet, whether it's an actor who is wearing something that tells you are, whether you're in the middle of the desert, whether you're on a set that looks something like this, you're constantly being reminded, despite all the work you're doing and the focus and everything that comes with, as you well know, directing a film, you're constantly being reminded that this is not just a film. This is both, a responsibility, a job, a passion, and also impossibly a sort of childhood dream.
J.J. Abrams, you did it. You brought Star Wars to a close. The final Star Wars movie that will ever be made. Yeah, right. They're going to crank out 1 billion of them. Just that series of Star Wars are over with. All right, for all things Oscar, be sure and like and subscribe Extra Butter on YouTube. When you're in Hollywood and want to go over to the after it, ultimately the pre-party begins. Make it Cantor's Deli. She's back to her pastrami. I'm going to get back to mine. L'chaim, have an awesome time at the Oscars. February 9th.